Rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level
KBLA Talk 1580. So excited to have joining me this morning this man born in El Paso, Texas, but he grew up in Watts and the East LA area, where his family faced poverty and discrimination. A gang member and drug user by the age of 12. By the time he turned 18, he had lost 25 of his friends to gang violence, drug overdoses, shootings, and suicide. Wrote a couple of autobiographical accounts of his experiences with gang violence and addiction. It Calls You Back, an odyssey through love, addiction, revolutions, and healing. And Always Running, La Vida Loca, Gang Days in LA. He's a poet, a journalist, a scholar, an Indigenous practitioner, and a gubernatorial candidate. Former gubernatorial candidate, Luis J. Rodriguez. Good morning.
Dominique, good morning. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And man, I'm enjoying your poetry. I finally started doubling down and reading some more of your poetry, and
good.
It's really fun to read.
Well, it's important to point out, I've told you, but I think it's important that to know your dad was an influence. And, of course, even your mom, all the poets of that period, the 60s, the 70s, the black generation, remember that whole mess of great poets that were coming out of all these communities? I got influenced by them as a young homeless gang member going to the library downtown, picking up books, and picked up books by Leroy Jones and Nikki Giovanni and Don L. Lee and all kinds of people that were just putting out the most amazing things. So my poetry has a trajectory with all that. Yeah.
Wow. When you describe yourself as a young and homeless in LA, I'm sure that, I don't know because I'm not in the room, but I know you talk to a lot of young people that are in similar situations to where you were coming up,
yeah.
And you really help a lot of young people. Do you think, is it them being able to lock in their imaginations on the journey that you've taken from where, they might be now to where you are now?
Well, I think so, because, I was homeless for 3 years as a teenager and lost on heroin, mugging people, but my salvation was at library. That was my refuge. I spent hours there and reading, expanding your mind, like what Malcolm X did, what everybody who has been through that, books becomes their one way out the door. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I tell people, okay, because a lot of people don't read books anymore. Books don't have the same. But I tell people the real important thing is to find what your gifts are, what your passions are, what do you feel deeply about. That's what's going to save you. It happened to be me, words. And so I just tell them, there is a way out of all these things. Well, we're all in prisons in some form or the other, especially if you're on drugs, if you're in the street, if whatever it might be. But the liberation starts with your mind.
Yeah, the liberation starts with your mind. I love that. That's so true. Um, when you are in that situation, as a young person, I'm sure you never imagined, you know, your words being made into movies and going all around the
Yeah.
world and winning tons of different literary and social accolades.
Right. And I think because all our imaginations, because of capitalism, because of the bottom line, because of dog eat dog, the world we're in gets very small. We have no imagination. When you're in the street, you're the least imaginative person you can be. You're just trying to survive. You know what I'm saying? You don't think about the next day or the future. You just think about how I'm going to make it today. And that's your imagination's closed. And so I think expanding your imagination, the capacity to always imagine first and then think about the ways to make that real is the way to go. And we got to teach. I guess we got to teach our kids too. They're losing that, even if they're on video games or watching TV or movies. They're getting somebody else's imagination. You know what I'm saying? But to think of your own.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that there's room. I think there's room for growth there, because like I remember when I was a kid, we'd be watching, we'd be into Spider-Man or whatever, but we would still put our own spin on it. We make up our own.
Yeah.
We make up our
absolutely.
own supervillain, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, that's what books. Yeah.
Yeah.
Books do the same thing. I'm reading other people's stories, but you're right. They sparked the idea somewhere there that maybe I had a story,
Yeah.
that maybe my story was important. So no, you're absolutely right. All those things can help get that going. But we do need to help people go that way,
Right.
know how to expand it and be more imaginative in their world and in their life.
My mom said the ultimate war is the war of the imagination.
Yeah,
in one of
yeah.
her poems, that all others are subsumed by it. And it's funny you say that about books, because I told my kid, you used to read all the time. I used to see you reading books all the time. I don't see you reading anymore. Ever since you gotten on that phone. And my
Yeah.
child looked at me and said, I'd be reading books on this phone. And started listing books that he had read on the phone. And then I just was like, oh.
Yeah, it's a new world.
Oh. You don't know what
I
they're
know.
doing on that phone. It could be anything from like porn to Shakespeare. It's all available right there.
No, I know. But I'm not fighting that world. I'm saying, neither are you. I think we're just getting aware that the world changes. But what doesn't change, I think, is sparking that spirit
Yeah.
of everyone, getting them going on their own initiatives. The world will start you. Others reading. Maybe there's a mentor. Maybe there's a teacher. Who knows? Things can start you going, but then you got to get your own, engines going. You got to get your own initiative, and you got to get your own drive. That's, I think, the important point. We live in a world, like you're saying, there's no imagination. War, the terrible things that's going on in Gaza, the terrible things that's going on in the inner cities, in our communities, here in LA. There's no imagination. There's these policies that people come up with. A war constantly is an unimaginative endeavor. And that's where we're at. We're in a war economy. We've been in a war economy since the country was founded, and we're still living that, and that destroys a lot of powerful, imaginative ways to go.
We just came out of this writer's strike and the actor's strike, and
Right.
one of the big things that's really pretty much in some ways unfinished business, at least for the actors, but I think for the writers too, based on what I know of their contract, is the issue of artificial intelligence. It could be
Right.
artificial imagination. We could, give it a different name for that moniker, artificial imagination, because for me, one of the things is not that I'm afraid of people using these tools, but if you can Xerox copy my essence, my soul, my ashe, then it's almost like you're robbing me of my humanity in some kind of way.
Well, I think that's why we feel the way we do. We feel alienated We feel that our humanity is at the table. It's being chopped up. And I think what's important to point out is that that AI, any technology, indigenous way of thinking, I'm talking about indigenous from Africa to Asia to the so-called Americas, they always have one idea. Technology is good in the sense you got to have technology, but you always make sure it's in accord with nature. And that's an important thing to bring out, because that's what my indigenous elders and teachers have told me. All technology is just got to be in accord with nature. And there's 4 natures that we're talking about. The real nature, the world around us, make sure the world's clean and safe and it's not overwrought, but also our own nature as people, human beings, our particular natures. You got to make sure it's in accord with what our dreams and hopes and aspirations might be. Also, the nature of relationships. Whatever we do shouldn't hurt nobody, shouldn't hurt others, shouldn't be against anybody. That's an important part of it. But the other one is in accord with the divine. However you think of the divine, however you think about a spirit beyond the world that we're in, that's the 4 key connections that all technology should be taken account. This is indigenous people teaching me this. You know what I'm saying? What we need to do in this world. And I like to present that to the world because I think it's a guide for what we do. Otherwise, as you're saying, with capitalism, it doesn't care. It's always, the next thing, the profit thing, the thing that's going to expand. Capitalism has to expand, even though it's reached its limits. It's the thing about it is that it has to expand no matter what, and it will destroy people and destroy the planet just to keep expanding.
This concept of infinite expansion or infinite profitability.
Right.
And when you say it's reached its limit, capitalism has reached its limit. What do you mean by that?
Well, the world is already, it's taken so much minerals from the earth. The earth has already got the climate changes and everything. We're already at a point where, if we don't deindustrialize, and I mean deindustrial in the sense of just taking stuff from the earth and throwing it back in a poisonous way, we're not going to last very long. Now, I'm not one of these doomsayers, and right now, we're going to all die. I am saying there's ways to go to change it, and we probably have a lot of leeway still. But I would say that that's one of the things that we don't. There has to be limits. The good thing about nature, it teaches you that the limits are actually how you become free. Understanding its laws and its limits is how you end up being free. Like if you wanted to fly, you have to understand the laws of aerodynamics. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't just jump up and fly. But obviously we got planes. What do we do as human beings? We figured out what are the laws of aerodynamics, how air and wind and ground and gravity, everything works so that we can create ways that we can fly. I'm not against any of that. I'm just saying we work with the limits that nature gives us. And within those limits, we actually become freer than we could have imagined. But if we start tearing apart everything, we're not free. We're actually captivated.
And it's interesting when we talk about technology that is, in accord with nature. Most of us can't imagine at this point functioning without our cell phones. And even as the war in Gaza or conflict or whatever you want to call that situation is raging, a lot of us are not necessarily focused on the destruction and war in the Congo,
right,
which is a lot based on the minerals we need for our cell phones. So how do you...
There you go.
How do you get to, technology in accord with nature when you have a situation like what's going on in Congo?
Well, the Congo situation is like the biggest, largest exploitation of human beings right now, currently in the world. And that's what I think we have to look at. If we're going to extract from nature, we got to do it again adequately, properly, and in accord. And one of the accords is that how does it affect others? If you're going to use, they got babies, they got children working for nothing, picking that cobalt or whatever it is that they have to get. And the Congo is not only becoming more impoverished, they're fighting over the little bit there is.
Yeah.
And I think that's what capitalism does. It's not like people shouldn't work and people shouldn't get, but they don't give you enough adequacy. Like we don't have enough to survive. And look at LA, one of the 10 richest cities in the world, and there are encampments still. I get it. They're trying to take them out, but they're not getting rid of homelessness. They're just pushing it around. You know what I'm saying? And the point is, how can you have that when you have all this wealth everywhere? You can look around you, and next to a big bank building is an encampment. Next to Hollywood, all the streets there, the entertainment capital of the world, encampments. That's what I think we have to look at. It's same thing in the Congo. How do we abstract these things that we may need without impoverishing and destroying the humanity of people that are there? But also, in many ways, as you're pointing out, we're caught in it. We're part of that web.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions around that. Of course, we are not only one of the richest cities in the world, a state that is wealthy enough to actually be one of the top nations if it was ranked by economy. So it's shameful. And so what do those solutions look like? I know that there's an interesting article on the cover of the LA Times today talking about how California and the western states have made it difficult to move encampments because you have to offer people housing, and they're arguing that it now is tying the hands of the cities so that they don't have the ability to move people out into housing. But at the same time, the advocates are saying, look, if you just had permanent supportive housing and universal basic income, you wouldn't have to worry about whether or not it's legal or not legal to sleep on a sidewalk. I want to get your reaction to that when we continue. We're talking with Luis Rodriguez, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Today, young adults face big questions about their future. How will you make your mark? Do you want to be part of something bigger than yourself? Are you ready to learn new skills and make new friendships? Perhaps you have a dream that you're ready to make real. So, how will you make a mark with your future? As you embark on a journey toward finding these answers, the military can serve as a resource for providing help, information, and opportunities. A public service message from the Department of Defense. To learn more, visit todaysmilitary.com.
Don't you wish your life came with a warning app?
Stop. That dog does not want to be petted.
A heads up before something bad happens.
You should not send that text.
Uh-oh. Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can reverse prediabetes and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
For some children, a single surgery can turn an untreated cleft into a smile for life. But at Smile Train, we understand that most children need a little extra care. They need medical, dental, and emotional resources to grow healthy and strong, to express themselves clearly, and to navigate all of life's challenges so that their smiles light up the room as brightly as possible. Visit SmileTrain.org to learn how Smile Train is supporting the cleft community with lifelong smiles.
Hi, I can help whoever's next.
Cooper's Overnight Shipping Company has to deliver the goods.
Ship these gifts to your grandkids.
They need a logistics manager to keep the wheels turning.
126 packages going to Toronto, Tuscaloosa, Montreal, and Minneapolis. Oh boy.
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now, you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears. Thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable. With Always, fear no gush.
They are our love bugs and companions. They are our pets, our family, and they make life better. When we face unexpected challenges, so do our pets. That's why we're on a mission to support people and their pets. Whether donating a bag of kibble, sharing an Instagram post of a lost cat, or welcoming a foster pet into your home, every bit of kindness counts. Visit petsandpeopletogether.org to learn how to be a helper in your community. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
And we are talking with Luis J. Rodriguez. He is the proprietor, along with his wife, of Tia Chucha's Cultural Center and Bookstore in the Valley in Los Angeles. You should go online. Is it tiachuchas.org? Is that tiachucha.org?
That's right.
tiachucha.org.
.org.
TIACUCHA.org.
Yes, thank you.
And you can find out about the great stuff they do there. Poetry readings and so much more. So I was asking about the unhoused and this argument that because California and the western states have a lot of limits about, anti-camping rules and the fact that you have to offer housing to the unhoused before you can just move an encampment, that it's made it tougher to clean up the streets.
Yeah, but part of the problem is that what's limiting us isn't nature, which, again, we can work around the laws of nature. It's capitalism again. It's a system that's made up. It's a total system that's totally made up for the benefit of a few. That's basically what capitalism is. And you can see it every day. A few are really benefiting from capitalism, and most of us are not. Even if you're in so-called middle class, you're always worried whether you're going to have enough to keep going. Inflation goes up, everything. You're never going to be in good shape. Capitalism is not the right laws to follow. You know what I'm saying? And the laws of housing is that you don't just have landlords and a few people that own homes, which I have a home. Others, are you talking about corporate developers? You're talking about these big corporations that have taken whole mess of housing, flipped them, fixed them a little bit, flipped them at a higher price, and it keeps going and going and going. These are corporate that go and buy a whole mess of homes at once and that's what you're dealing with, is the big corporate control of housing. And so you can't live in LA, as you know. I have 3 grown men sons. I love them. They're great. They live with me at home, with my wife and me. They're working. They're trying to make it. They contribute, but they can't get out and find an apartment for themselves. One of them lives with his girlfriend in the back house. In other words, that's what we have to do in LA just to survive here. All my family, working class group, Watts and East LA area, they're all in Idaho. They moved out. They can't live in LA. They're all working class. No one went to college. None of my daughter's the only one to finish college. But none of them. And they're good people. They just cannot afford to live in LA. And they would be homeless except that they went and found lower prices somewhere in Idaho, which I understand is going up high too. Living in Idaho is not easy. So what I'm saying is that's what's hurting us. Housing should be a right, a human right. You got to have a home. You got to have food, and yet food, the price of groceries went up almost 100% since the last time we went and shopped. So the point is, food, housing, the basics shouldn't be part of a capitalist law. You know what I'm saying? People should have access to them. But no, we're living in a world where everything has to be paid for, otherwise you can't survive. You can't live in this world without paying your way through.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a long time proponent of a system where there's a floor that no one goes beneath, which is, it could be small, but a place to live, universal health care and a universal basic income so that no one is starving on the streets. Now, to me, if you want to be ambitious and build beyond that, you should have the ability to do so. But we shouldn't have people with colostomy bags suffering on sidewalks, which we do have in LA
exactly
now.
Right.
And not just in LA.
Exactly right.
Because this new data shows that we're currently at the highest level of unhoused people nationally that we have been since 2006 when we started tracking it.
Yeah, and 50% are black. When the population of black people was at 12%, I forget what the numbers are now, but it's amazingly 12, history has taken us here. History, that's why people can't deny the history. History has put us in this place, and history has also made sure that the majority of the people who are impoverished, the vast majority, or getting majority, is black. and the other ones are brown, whatever, might be. And then, of course, for white people. But the point is, you're right. We shouldn't have a world in which people are allowed to starve.
Yeah.
Even if they wanted to starve,
Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to go on a hunger strike, that's your agency to do so. But
exactly.
Yeah, that's different. You mentioned, we only have a minute and a half here. You mentioned that before news, traffic, and sports, then we'll continue. The wisdom that you're getting from Indigenous elders. And I think sometimes we don't make the connection between Mexican, Indigenous, like the American society, especially mainstream society, loves like Native Americans in theory, but can't stand Latinos in theory. And I just wanted you to explain what is that connection to these Indigenous elders and a Chicano.
Yeah, and most Mexicans have Indigenous roots one way or the other.
Right.
Now, there's about 27 million that still are tribal in Mexico. And now they're being recognized. Mexico just recently officially made 68 languages official languages of Mexico. Spanish is not the only official
I did not know that. That's deep.
Yeah. It's really a big jump that they recognize 68 variants, even though there's about 300 languages. 68 variants are now officially languages. This is a big change. They're also recognizing, of course, in Mexico, the Afro-Mexican part, that always was forgotten, and now they're paying attention. There's a few changes there to recognize. In this country, we need to recognize that when Mexicans and Central Americans, others, of course, from the Americas that were here, we're not really immigrants like from other parts of the world. We have stakes and roots in this very land. That's why one of my books is called From Our Land to Our Land, because when I was born, we went from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. My mom went across the International Bridge to El Paso, Texas, to have me born. But that's all part of the Chihuahuan Desert. And the Rarámuri people, where my mom has roots from, have been there for 10,000 years. So we went from our land to our land. You know what I'm saying? Across the border, it's only been there 106 years when I was born. The border is there. Everybody recognizes it, but it's made up. It's our land to our land. So I'm trying to get people to understand Mexicans come in all races, as you know, come in all colors. So it's not, but for the majority and many of them, especially the brown-skinned one, their roots are with this land like other Native peoples. And it doesn't mean we're better than anybody.
Okay, Luis, we'll continue the conversation after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
Boom, boom. KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you a Christmas season that is merry and bright. Happy holidays.
Santa baby, just slip a sable under the tree for me.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Marvel is dropping actor Jonathan Majors after he was found guilty in his domestic violence trial in Manhattan, New York. Majors' character, Kang the Conqueror, was set to be a major figure in the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward. The African-American actor was not found guilty on another count of assault and one count of aggravated assault. Airbnb is using artificial intelligence technology to help put a stop to New Year's Eve parties. Officials with the short-term rental platform say bookings that are made for the holiday are being analyzed to check for risk factors such as the length of stay and the distance of the rental from the user's address. If the AI system finds that a booking may be problematic, it won't allow the reservation to go through. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Need money for the holidays? Avoid the yikes before Christmas. Hurry into Jackson Hewitt for a holiday loan on your tax refund, up to $1,000. Early refund advance offered to eligible clients. Application required. Finance charge applies. Loans by Republic Bank. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
8 straight wins for the Clippers, their longest winning streak since the 2015-16 season. The Clippers scored 151 points at Indiana last night They win by 24. The Clippers are 13-3 since November 14th. 35 points and 9 assists for James Harden. Kawhi Leonard had 28, 27 for Paul George. Keep your radar up on the Clippers. If these dudes can stay healthy, the Clippers will be a legitimate contender for the Western Conference title. The news is not as good for the Lakers. They are 1-3 since winning the in-season tournament. They lose by 5 last night at home to the New York Knicks. The Knicks got 38 points off their bench. Good games from Anthony Davis and LeBron in the loss. 32 points and 14 rebounds for AD. LeBron put up a triple-double with 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's the gift-giving season, and we have a gift for you. Visit us online at KBLA.store for holiday savings of 20% off all of our KBLA swag. For the best in merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store right now. And be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all our official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580, at 20% off, but only during the holiday season. Happy holidays.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Did you know there's a way to outsmart COVID if you get it? Now there are medicines that can treat COVID, whether or not you've been vaccinated, which is great news, especially if you're over 50. If taken in the first 5 days of having symptoms, COVID medicines can help stop the illness from getting serious. Call a healthcare provider or the statewide COVID hotline at 833-422-4255 to learn more about COVID medicines. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health.
Today, young adults face big questions about their future. How will you make your mark? Do you want to be part of something bigger than yourself? Are you ready to learn new skills and make new friendships? Perhaps you have a dream that you're ready to make real. So, how will you make a mark with your future? As you embark on a journey toward finding these answers, the military can serve as a resource for providing help, information, and opportunities. A public service message from the Department of Defense. To learn more, visit today'smilitary.com.
Did you know that every year, public school teachers spend nearly $500 of their own money for student supplies? At Donors Choose, we want students and teachers to have the tools they need for a great education. And now, more than ever, they need your help. Go to DonorsChoose.org and choose from teachers' requests that support reading, math, science, music, and more. Learn more at DonorsChoose.org.
Donors Choose. Support a classroom. Build a future.
I'm Scarlett Johansson. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. You can join the movement to end hunger by donating, volunteering, and advocating. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of This Light of Ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. A dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This Light of Ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This Light of Ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
We don't, and neither does Luis J. Rodriguez. He's a poet, an activist, a former gubernatorial candidate, and so much more, an Indigenous scholar. you were just breaking down the connections between, the people we think of as Mexican, whether they be Chicano, i.e., California or U.S. Mexican or Latino people, and the indigenous people of North America. And I argue that we often don't make the connection. We don't connect the dots. And you also mentioned the African presence or black presence in Mexico, with some called the third root, el tercer raíz, that happened pre our enslavement, but also because Mexico abolished the slave trade. I think it was 50 years before the U.S., so there were many black Americans who fled into Mexico, were not deported, and pretty much integrated into the population through intermarriage and such.
Right. There was an underground railroad going south that a lot of people don't know about. But yeah, and we just point this out now, not to think that we're better than anybody or that we should be over anybody. It's just to point out that it's this made-up, fabricated idea of nation, of country, of who has power, who doesn't, is what we have to dismantle. Every one of us as human beings should have, like you say, a floor, an adequate sense that we have a right to be here, that we should be taken care of. There should be a floor of making sure everybody's well-being. It's called shared well-being. And that's an indigenous thought, but it really isn't. It's really part of every religion. It's part of every culture, shared well-being, but we've lost it. Capitalism, the way it is now, is not about shared well-being anymore. And you can see it in the streets. So, but yet we still have these concepts in our minds and our hearts. They're in every religion. They're in the Quran. They're in the Bible. They're in the Vedas, whatever anybody might have. But we've lost the sense of where we're at because capitalism distorts everything, including these big churches, as you know, including the big institutions. All of them are in crisis. As capitalism in crisis, every institution, every school, they're all in crisis as well. And so I think bringing in indigenous cosmology or cosmovision isn't to say that we're better than anybody. It just means there's some basic things, essential things in there that helps us. And as you know, black people in this country have indigenous roots too. There was a lot of intermarriage with indigenous people, with the Seminole, with other tribes. There was the Red Shirt Rebellion of black and indigenous people against racism in the 1800s. There's so much history. So we're all bound with each other in this country. There's no way that we could say anybody belongs here more than anybody else. But being bound, we need to work really closely for the essential things, the essential issues and essential, thinking that we need to have.
When you talk about this third root or the black presence in Mexico, both pre-Columbus and post-Columbus, I wonder how the awareness of that is in the Chicano, Latino, and Mexican communities, because we do encounter some anti-blackness there, and and I wonder, and I've had people challenge me on the air, what is the trajectory of understanding of this history in the Latino community?
Yes, absolutely. That's why we have the Centro Cultural, by the way. It's a bookstore about that kind of knowledge, the pre-knowledge, the important knowledge, the key transformative knowledge. We have a bookstore, we have readings, we have dialogues. We bring in elders from Mexico. We bring in elders from here in the United States. We talk about these issues. And if ever you can get to somewhere, it's a beautiful space. There's murals, there's books everywhere, there's art gallery. We're the only bookstore, art gallery, and comprehensive culture center for 500,000 people in the Northeast San Fernando Valley. There's no other place.
That's amazing.
There's no bookstores. I know. It's just crazy in L.A. You can get, like I always point out, you can get a gun in those neighborhoods. You can get drugs. You can buy liquor anywhere. There's liquor stores everywhere. But you can't buy a book, and except for us. So I think that's a place where we explore, like you're pointing out, all these things. The African place in this land, which goes very deep, as you're pointing out, and the connections with other indigenous peoples. They were actually integrated. They were all integrated. It wasn't black people were here and then there was other indigenous people. They all integrated together. And then the Spanish come and bring in slaves and now bring in more problems because they bring in the caste system. you know. And at the very bottom were black and indigenous people. At the very top were the white Spanish people. And they brought, it was part of the law. They made it law, just like the U.S. made slavery and other things law. So, yeah, I think you're right. We have a lot to learn. Places like the Achutes, we're not the only ones, but obviously we need more, are places to explore and get the books and get that knowledge.
When you, I know you've been clocking the man I call he who shall not be named, the former president of the United States, his escalation, I guess, in anti-immigrant rhetoric. And his expansion, really, of not just targeting Mexico, but this last rant that he did in Vegas targeting Asian, African countries, saying it's poisoning the blood of our country. How do you read that?
Yeah. Well, you know, the only look, one thing that guy who would not be named, one thing about what he does, he's tapping into a sentiment that's very strong in his country that may not be the majority of the people, but he's making it more cohesive. That sentiment is getting cohered. The rest of us are getting thrown for a loop. They're cohering themselves, as you know. This anti-wokeness, all this stuff is a coherence of them. Their numbers are small, but their numbers can be powerful if they get out, they get the votes or even undermine the votes, which is what they do. They want power and they want control, and they're serious. They will be a dictatorship. He even said he would do it. He said he'd do it for a day, but you know what? For him, there's no day. They want to, you know.
For him, there's no day. Yeah, right. And can you imagine that guy backing off of power? Like if he had it for a day and then he'd relinquish it? That's a fairy tale.
He won't do it.
Yeah.
But he's letting us know ahead of time. And people have told me, well, why would he keep talking this stuff when he didn't win these elections? He's not going to win. Because they're cohering a very powerful section of this country, white supremacy, and even the few black and brown people that go along with it. There's a few that are going along with it. They're cohering them because they want the power. They know the rest of us, moderate and liberal, progressives, whatever we might be, are fragmented. You know, we're all over the place. And
do you
so
agree?
They know what they're doing.
Do you agree, Luis? Tavis Smiley has a friend, Ruben Navarrete. He's a conservative Latino columnist there. He's always on with Tavis.
Yeah.
And he makes the argument, and I've seen some polling, that Latinos are moving to the right. This particularly Mexican Americans are embracing Trump and the Republican Party. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think they're looking at it like cherry picking. The vast majority of Latinos, and I'm talking about all of them, Mexico, Central American, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, wherever they may be from, are voting still liberal, Democrat, progressive. The vast majority. Yes, there's movement, and I'll tell you where it comes from. It comes from evangelical right-wing churches. I'm not talking about evangelical Christians. I know a lot of them are really good, but the right-wing churches have really had an exponential growth among Latinos. And this includes Puerto Ricans, where I lived in the Puerto Rican neighborhood in Chicago for 15 years. It includes a lot of Mexicans, especially in Texas. It includes, of course, the Cubans and others in Miami. It includes a lot of people. They're moving towards the evangelical right-wing section of that church. And they're moving that population towards Trump, towards the Republican Party. That is what's happening that nobody's talking about. Because Texas is not a monolith either when it comes to Latinos, but there is a movement among these evangelicals. They're very strong, and they control a lot of people's minds and spirits, if you want to put it out that way.
And my impression is similar to our press. Many of these big Latino outlets are owned by more conservative, wealthy folks too.
Yeah, Univision, who was the largest and had a really good presence, is now moving definitely towards that direction. They interviewed Trump without giving him any hard questions, no hard-bottling, just interview him recently. And it's like, what's going on here? Well, these conservative Latinos have controlled the media. And Univision is important. It's the one Spanish national, it's a traditional Spanish language media, and now it's being controlled by these conservatives. So this is the power of the cohering that I'm talking about. They're not even cohering just on white people. They're cohering around that politics, that right-wing, and I would have to say fascist politics that they're all moving towards. And even with all the losses they keep going because they're not going to give up. They want to eventually have that country that they control and its power, and the caste system begins to be more out there again.
Yeah. We're talking with Luis J. Rodriguez. You can check out, if you like he said, if you go to Silmar or go online, tiachucha.com, tiachucha.com. It's a rich resource of creativity and resistance. Continuing with Luis when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, a Pfizer vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Every child deserves the best teachers, facilities, and academic programs to set them up for success. At Milton Hershey School in Hershey, Pennsylvania, we make that a reality for children from qualifying families who are looking for greater opportunities. Milton Hershey School enrolls students from pre-K through 12th grade from across the United States to live and learn on a beautiful state-of-the-art campus with all costs covered. Are you looking to set your child up for success or know a child who could benefit from Milton Hershey School? Learn more at mhskids.org/admissions.
This open enrollment season, LA Care Covered is offering health plans starting at $0 a month. Each plan provides benefits including $0 preventive services, 24/7 telehealth services, around-the-clock nurse advice lines, walk-in minute clinics, and more. Shop and compare premium silver plans with $0 deductibles to help meet your health goals. Ready to shop? Visit us online at lacarecovered.org for a commitment-free instant quote or speak with us directly at 855-222-4239. LA Care Covered, your affordable path to wellness.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Right now, we're talking with Luis J. Rodriguez. And Luis, you're getting love in the YouTube chat room.
Cool.
It's KBLA 1580 on YouTube where we're streaming, and people are happy that you're on the show this morning. So I love to hear that. And yeah, I mean, it does feel like we're moving at the risk of sounding hyperbolic toward fascism. I mean, as you say, right, Trump is admitted to being a dictator day one. Some of the changes in governance that he's outlined and his fixation with revenge really don't bode well. Now there's some new polling out today that finds that Biden once again is trailing Trump by 2 points in this latest polling that shows that the U.S., people disapprove of the way that the Biden administration is handling the situation in Gaza. This is a New York Times Siena College poll. Yeah. It's most stark with younger Americans. I've been saying that because I just know. I know young people. I'm on social media.
Right.
And it is, but the thing that freaks me out, I think that my personal opinion is that Gaza is going to cost Biden this election. The thing that freaks me out, according to this polling, though, is that younger voters are angry at Biden about his moves in the Middle East, but they're moving to Trump. That their solution is they think Trump would handle it better than Biden. And where's the logic?
Yeah, well, there's no, on the rest of us, there's no coherency on our end.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they're all over the place. They know what they're doing. They cohere. They have to consolidate themselves, and they're doing very well, and they'll bring in black and brown people if they can. The other end of it is not being coherent, and this is a shame. There is no party. There is no central progressive grouping out there that anybody can jump to. It's all been fragmented. So you and me, our voices, and others that can write and speak, we have to keep bringing this knowledge and understanding. Like, for example, I don't like Biden. I'm not a Democrat. I don't, but strategically, I'm going to vote for Biden. Now, people are going to think that's kind of weird. I think Biden is messed up around Gaza. What the Democrats should do is not have Biden be the presidential candidate. That's what they should do. They're not, who knows what they're going to do. The only reason I would vote for him is a strategic thing. We can't let Trump come back. And I would tell everybody, because abortion is also a big issue. They're using that to contact themselves. Most people want choice. Most people. But it doesn't matter. They're consolidating that so-called pro-life grouping. So what I would say is strategically, let's make sure Trump doesn't come back. The voting, get out there and make sure, even if you're a revolutionary, even if you hate the voting booth, because there's other things that we can do to teach, organize, and build to move everything forward. But if we start fragmenting and start saying, well, I'm not going to vote, I'm going to be the anti-system vote, I'm not going to participate. Trump knows this, Trump and all these people, they know that. They know that all of us, Black Lives Matter, Chicano peoples, all of us, that we're all sitting here stewing, and some of us are uniting, but the rest of us are going against each other. They know all that, and they're going to come in. That's what happened with Hitler. That's what happened. You read what happened, what he did. They're following the blueprint. Mussolini did it. So I would say it's a strategy. I'm going to vote for Biden. I don't like the guy. I think the Biden's making a terrible mistake, and you're right. He might lose it just on this alone, and Gaza, other stuff. But the point is, we can't let Trump come in. We can't just pretend that these things are. We have agency. But my agency also says I'm going to be critical of all those Democrats. I'm going to be critical of Biden. I'm going to be critical of that system. But I don't want these fascists coming in. And Biden has tendencies of that, but he's not really the fascist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And just to be strategic about what we do. Black, brown people, progressive people, white people, Jewish communities that are gravitating around the issues we're about. I'm all for all of us making sure we have strategy in our thinking and hopefully organizing and building, because that's what we don't really do very well right now.
Don't do as much as we should. Absolutely.
Not as much as we do.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I understand what you're saying about being strategic. I'm just wondering, how do we turn this around? If young people are saying, I voted for Biden last time, but I don't want to vote for him because of what he's doing in Gaza, so my solution is to go to Trump, that's something that is something that needs to be addressed. And I know you work a lot with young people, and I'm not quite sure how to address it.
No, I think that's part of my job, our job, with the Achuchas, and I'm speaking all over the place. I go around the country. I just came back from Mexico City. I've tried to raise these issues as best I can, because I think that's what it is. Knowledge is freedom. The more we know, the more we owe. And I think that that's one area where I can battle whatever situations are going on. I'm not going to go up and start beating people down or nothing. I'm not going to yell and scream at nobody. I'm not going to put anybody down. But I do feel like, as older I am, and I guess all of us growing up in that next generation, we got to keep struggling, and we got to keep giving people the knowledge and awareness as respectful as we can, but we got to keep teaching people. That's a strategy when somebody says, I'm going to vote for Trump because I can't stand Biden.
Right.
It's a strategy. So we got to give them other strategies. And again, I don't like Biden. I didn't like him the last time, but you got to look at you got to have a perspective, the whole picture, macro and micro at the same time. We can do that. You know what I mean? If the Democrats were smart, they would not let Biden be the presidential candidate.
Yeah.
Hopefully pick somebody else that people can gravitate around.
But that's highly, I agree, actually.
It's not gonna happen.
But it's highly unusual. It would be highly unusual
not gonna happen.
for that to happen. Yeah, it's just not how it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure. And I think part of the resistance to Biden on the right is folks in the so-called centers, people, are afraid of a President Kamala Harris. I'm not. I actually would consider
I'm not.
an
No,
upgrade, but
and I'm critical of her too, but she's not. You got to put it in perspective. She's nothing compared to what we're talking about. She's nothing compared to a Trump. No way. She's got issues and she should be criticized, but man, I'd rather have her any day. You know what I'm saying? In other words, you got to put it all in perspective. She's not the perfect candidate. There is no perfect candidate. we got to have this idea that there is no perfect way to go, but there is progress. There's not perfection, but there's progress, and we have to think about what those strategies and tactics would be that will keep us moving forward, even if they're incremental, but then also there'll be leaps, but move forward versus standing still or going backward.
Yeah. We just got a couple of minutes here. I know that you are, very tied into your indigenous roots and the practices of your ancestors. And we are seeing, a lot of natural disasters. I don't know if you put meaning on those or if you think it's just a regular way of life. A volcano erupted in Iceland after all these earthquakes and thousands of people evacuated. I feel like, we're seeing not just the climate crisis, but whatever, regular everyday disasters seem to be abundant. Do you put anything on that, or do you say that's just a natural cycle of life?
Well, it's both. It's a natural cycle of life, but also there's a spirit in the world. At least indigenous people feel that way. And that spirit has been rocked, has been forgotten, has been pushed aside, and has been not treated very well. I think that's part of that is also going on. Just like the spirit within us, we explode, we lose it. Within us, our own spirit is not happy. The house that we have is falling down around us. And so I think that the world also has a world behind it, and that world is also struggling and letting us know. I do think it's also part, of course, you can look at it scientifically how all these things happen. But I also, as a spiritual person, and I'm not a church person, I'm not an institution person, I'm talking about the essential spirit, is that everything has a spirit. And we look at the spirits are being, responding to what we're doing in this world. This is why we wake up. This is why we end up doing what we try to do, to go back to be in accord with nature and the spirit of things.
Well, it's always great to talk to you, Luis. You can find him at luisjrodriguez.com or tiachucha.com. And you're on social media too, right?
Yeah, and it's tiachucha.org.
Oh,
yeah.
.org.
And I'm on social media. So I'm on Instagram, YouTube. Look my name, Luis J. Rodriguez in general. I have handles. But just look for me. All that stuff, I'm in there as well.
Well, it's always great to talk with you, Luis. Thanks for making time for us this morning.
Thank you, Dominique. Always my pleasure. Thank you.
We got news, traffic, and sports, and then we're going to be taking that reparations survey. Y'all got to do it. blackexperiencela.com. Let's get it started. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Marvel is dropping actor Jonathan Majors after he was found guilty in his domestic violence trial in Manhattan, New York. Majors' character, Kang the Conqueror, was set to be a major figure in the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward. The African-American actor was not found guilty on another count of assault and one count of aggravated assault. Airbnb is using artificial intelligence technology to help put a stop to New Year's Eve parties. Officials with the short-term rental platform say bookings that are made for the holiday are being analyzed to check for risk factors such as the length of stay and the distance of the rental from the user's address. If the AI system finds that a booking may be problematic, it won't allow the reservation to go through. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Need money for the holidays? Avoid the yikes before Christmas. Hurry into Jackson Hewitt for a holiday loan on your tax refund, up to $1,000. Early refund advance offered to eligible clients. Application required. Finance charge applies. Loans by Republic Bank. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
8 straight wins for the Clippers, their longest winning streak since the 2015-16 season. The Clippers scored 151 points at Indiana last night. They win by 24. The Clippers are 13-3 since November 14th. 35 points and 9 assists for James Harden. Kawhi Leonard had 28, 27 for Paul George. keep your radar up on the Clippers. If these dudes can stay healthy, the Clippers will be a legitimate contender for the Western Conference title. The news is not as good for the Lakers. They are 1-3 since winning the in-season tournament. They lose by 5 last night at home to the New York Knicks. The Knicks got 38 points off their bench. Good games from Anthony Davis and LeBron in the loss, 32 points and 14 rebounds for AD. LeBron put up a triple-double with 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's the gift-giving season, and we have a gift for you. Visit us online at KBLA.store for holiday savings of 20% off all of our KBLA swag. For the best in merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store right now. And be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all our official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580, at 20% off, but only during the holiday season. Happy holidays.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!